Okay, I had to do part 2 of the English paper piecing quilt video because apparently I got to talking and forgot the actual, what I was trying to tell you in the first video. Let's talk about the paper. You sew around the paper. So when you're putting your two pieces together, you're gonna try and sew just through the fabric portion along this seam. If you nick the paper, it's really not the end of the world. It'll just make it a little trickier to get out. And yes, I'm using a glue stick to glue these papers onto the fabric, but no, that is not permanent. So when it's time to take your papers out, and this is just my method of doing this, you don't have to do it this way. I find that when my papers become landlocked by other fabric, so for example, this one right here is now completely landlocked by other hexes in this quilt, I can take this one out. You can leave your papers in for the entirety of the quilt, but if you're making something large like this, it can be really hard to sort of wrangle that around when you have all that paper to contend with. So I tend to do it section by section. There's two reasons for that. First is that it just makes it easier to wrangle that quilt around. The second is I can reuse those hexagons later in the project. So if you don't want to make all of your, hexy flowers to start and you want to save some, maybe do half of them and then, do half the quilt, pull all those papers out except for your edge pieces, and then you can reuse those papers for later in the project, as long as you're not ripping them apart to take them out. So this one is ready to come out, and to pull it out, I'm just lifting some of that fabric away. See how it pulls straight off of that paper? The glue stick it's not super glue. It's not gonna stay there forever. And once I have one of those pieces loosened up, it just pulls right out. It's easy as that, guys. And then it holds its shape, right? So there's where I just pulled that one out, and there's the back. So let me show you again. This one is landlocked. So I'm just lifting the fabric and pulling it out. It's so easy. So that is, and now I'm like, let's work this whole way down the quilt. So you can sew maybe a section of these together and then, go back through and pull your papers out. Just gently pull them out. And then to reuse them, sometimes they have, pieces of fabric or whatever stuck to them. So pull that off, and then you can reuse that again and again and again until it is completely disintegrated. So that should answer your questions about how and when to pull those paper pieces out. Now I leave these side ones along the perimeter of my quilt until I'm ready to make my quilt sandwich, and then you can pull them out. That's just a preference of mine. It's not the end of the world. Sometimes they just fall out because you're, working on it for so long. I knew I had a loose one. So this one's ready to come out. It's not that big of a deal. You actually could probably just lay it's not the end of the world if these come undone because you're going to be trimming this up anyway. So don't stress too much about that. I hope that answers some questions. Let me know if you have more questions around English paper piecing or sewing in general. I'm here to help. Like and follow for more.